Hello everyone, welcome to the first GridMarkets webinar of 2021. I know you've all been, no, 2022, that's a great start to the first webinar of 2022. I've totally got my head screwed on. Welcome back, it's been a while. We've got such an exciting and important community and guests today. It's really excited to take you through. Oh, sorry.
Hey, sorry, do you know that?
Yeah, I've got this till, this is a webinar, live webinar. There we go. And the joys of doing this at work and not at home. You get it both at home and at work. Sorry about that. So today we have the wonderful people from CGAfrica who are doing some incredible work. But before that, we have the wonderful Mark Ross of GridMarkets, who has made this webinar possible, along with Ben Hill from Oracle. We have joining us Mark, Ben and myself. We have Femi from CGAfrica, who will be taking us through who CGAfrica are, what they're doing, and most importantly, what they're doing for CG community. And we're super lucky to have Sylvester and Adewale join us as well, who are just the most talented artists who are part of CGAfrica, and we'll get to see some of their work later on. But before we get down to that, let's hear from the man himself, Mr. Mark Ross.
Thank you, Charlie, and welcome to 2021. I mean, 22. It's going to happen a lot. Hi, I'm Mark Ross. Thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to showcase CGAfrica and the two artists who are joining us today. But before that, let me just give you a quick introduction to GridMarkets. GridMarkets, in a nutshell, is a cloud rendering solution, and we support the major 3D packages: Blender, Houdini, Cinema 4D, Maya, and 3ds Max, as well as the major renderers. It's a very easy solution to set up. There's a plugin that you download from our website. Point number two, you download a plugin from the website, load that into your 3D software, and then you can submit your simulations or your render requests to us directly. Very easy to do. In the process, you specify that you want to use one to many machines, and you can run many submissions in parallel. So therefore, you can get very fast response. It's a pay per machine hour model, and you can use budgeting controls so you can control what you spend. It has been built by artists, and it is supported by artists, so we understand your challenges getting across those important deadlines, and we're here to support you. It's also secured by the Oracle Cloud, which you're going to hear a bit more about. To get started, it's very easy. Go to our website, bottom left there, you can see gridmarkets.com/signup. There's a create account button. Click on that, you'll get a free account. Then you download the plugin that I was telling you about. The plugin will include two bits. One is called Envoy, and the other is the plugin for the 3D software that you're using. I'll show you how that works in a moment. In this case, the Houdini plugin has been installed, and the Houdini artist would be able to then point to their project files, submit those, they would be uploaded to our cloud, and then whatever renderer is that you're using would get started and run your submission at scale. Once that has been done, you get a dashboard that looks like this. The dashboard shows each of your different submissions, and you can track the progress of each of the submissions down to the frame. So if you were to click on any one of these rows here, you could identify the individual frames they're running and the status of them and interrogate the logs of those, for example. As your frames are completed, they're downloaded, so there's no waiting. So as soon as a frame is done, it downloads to the storage location that you designated. And get started with a free trial. Go to gridmarkets.com, sign up. you'll get a 15% discount. Use the webinar code 2022 January 18 webinar to get a 15% discount. And would love to see you. Back to you, Charlie.
Thanks, Mark. And for everyone who will be taking advantage of that free trial, we will be showing it, be reminding you later of how to get that. So, as Mark mentioned, the wonderful Oracle Cloud and how that supports GridMarkets, and maybe not one of the sexiest parts of animation and VFX work, but certainly one of the most important, security. So we're lucky enough to have Ben Hill with us today to take us through what Oracle do and who they are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Charlie. Again, my name is Ben Hill. I am a global director for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So when Oracle went about launching our Gen 2 cloud offering, our approach to security was deliberate and direct. We wanted to ensure that it was always on, automated, architected in, and best of all, we wanted to make it free. So let's go through some of the high points of how we went about doing this. First, more security by default. Now, what does that mean? Well, we designed for isolation. We've taken the hypervisor and put it on the network layer. This approach separates customer traffic, which provides better security and performance. And as an added bonus, it reduces the risk of hypervisor-based attacks. Also, OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, has what's called separation of duties, which means Oracle admins have no access to a customer's memory space. And as it relates to your data and associated storage services, we have full encryption at rest and in motion, as well as integrated backups for business continuity and disaster recovery best practices. Now let's chat about some of the actual features. So we have what's called Oracle Cloud Guard, which provides a comprehensive end-to-end monitoring for your cloud environments by continuously collecting and analyzing service configurations, audit logs, and other information and reporting its findings as problems based on out-of-the-box security recipes or custom security recipes created by the admin. And to complement Oracle Cloud Guard, or OCG is what we call it, Oracle has OCI security zones, which provides a secure enclave within customer tenancies for the most sensitive workloads where security is mandatory and always on. And as I mentioned before, best of all, most security services are free, like multi-factor authentication for user access, OCI Vault, which can be used to store passwords, SSH keys, and certifications. And unlike our competitors, OCI welcomes third-party tools. So you can federate your identity and access management policies with your organization's centralized identity provider, as well as SIM systems like Splunk, Logarithm, and others via APIs and SDKs. So that is all I had, Charlie. I'll pass it over to you to get into the sexy stuff. It's tough to be sexy when you're competing with this imagery, but hopefully you found that information useful.
Thanks, Ben. Always sexy. So now we're moving on to the juicy bit, CGAfrica, and we have some great people to introduce you to today, along with some beautiful imagery, which I'm really excited to share with you. So if we welcome Femi. Femi has well over 10 years of experience working in 3D visualization, and since 2020 has been working with CGAfrica. So, hi Femi. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. I appreciate it.
I mean, CGAfrica are doing some really great things. Could you share with us the background and journey for you to be working with them, and then maybe share with us some of the visuals that your guys have worked on?
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. The first thing I would like to do is to give credit to all the artists on the platform. And to do that, what I have done is put together a reel just under a minute of some of the works that I would like to showcase. So if you don't mind, I'll just play that video, and I'll come back, then I would explain how the journey started. And in fact, I've got two of the artists with us today. I've got Sylvester and Adewale. and I'm sure they will be excited to talk about some of the things they are working on. So I'll go ahead and play the video, then I will come back. I hope you saw that all right. And credits to all the artists on the platform. That's just a collection of some of their artworks. But like I said, I've got Sylvester and Adewale with me. And at some point, I'll be inviting them to talk about what they are doing. But I'm quite happy to explain how we came about the platform, CGAfrica. I would spend the next 1 or 2 minutes to explain how the whole thing started. Personally, I'll tell my story. I've always wanted to be an animator because I'm fascinated by colors and things that move. But then while growing up, there were no animation school around me. So the closest thing to animation or to drawing I could figure out was architecture. So I went into an architectural school. But while I was in school, I was fascinated by the visualization part of architecture, how they put this imagery together. So much so that while that was going on, I teamed up with a couple of my friends and my brothers. We thought, okay, it will be good for us to make a story. One of the original stories, or one of the folk tales that is quite popular while we were growing up. We thought, all right, let's just make that into an animation video. So we went ahead to learn some tricks, and we, foolishly, we wanted to make an entire movie by ourselves. And we got in the game. In fact, one of the images that you showed, the slide, let me share it with the team. So this came from the slide that you shared at the beginning, which is that, and this is a collection of some of the characters that we were able to put together in trying to make this movie that we wanted to make. But of course, along the line, we realized that it takes a very big budget to make a movie. So we did learn a lot while we did that. And in the process, I realized there was no organization, no structure for CG around us, so much so that in Africa, there was nothing, no team of friends. And then so alongside with a couple of my friends, my brothers and some co-founders, we thought it would be good for us to have a playground, so to say, where we can share ideas, where we can share tutorials, where we can so much so support or encourage one another. So we started CGAfrica back then in 2013. And I'm happy that we've got thousands of artists subscribed to the platform, and the number is still growing. And day in, day out, we're putting awareness out there just to explain what CG is about and to get people who are interested to come and join the board. So specifically, I started CGAfrica to encourage animators and also to build a platform where people in Africa, computer and graphic enthusiasts in Africa, can play, a playground for computer graphics in Africa.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, you mentioned in 2013, that's when you started it, and there'll be a few people watching this webinar that maybe that they don't understand what the landscape is like in Africa. I mean, I know there's a few studios down in South Africa that are well known, but what would you say the animation industry and CG and VFX for CG is like in Africa, and has that progressed since 2013 when you started CGAfrica?
Oh, right. Yeah, thanks for that. That's a good one, because back in 2013 when we started, it was it was worse than this. But I'm happy to say that in those number of years, there's now more awareness, and so much so now that the industry is witnessing some kind of a movement that is teetering at the moment, and it's about to grow into, well, I'm being careful here, but into $1 billion industry, if I could use that word, because there's a sort of background to this. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Afrobeat, the music industry in Africa. Music industry in Africa back in 2010, 2008, 2004, if we go back 20 years, it was struggling. It was struggling. We have talented artists that make their music, but then they struggled to sell. But then fast forward to 2020, the music industry right now is one of the biggest exports from Africa. So much so that people on the streets now, everybody wants to sing. But then here's the catch. The movie industry is following closely the music industry, because now everybody is thinking about entertainment. Like, there's a lot of money to be made here. So the artists now, they are starting to focus on the music, the movie, and of course, if the movie industry grows, it drags the CG with it. So we are at the threshold now where we see that there's going to be an explosion of CG in Africa. So yeah, it is getting exciting right at the moment.
I mean, that's great to hear, the positive increase and how the industry's growing. And with that, and I suppose it's a question of how CGAfrica is complementing that and assisting new talents. If the industry's growing, how you mentioned earlier accessibility to to becoming an animator. I mean, what do you see? Are there schools now starting to adopt animation as a course because of this?
Oh, that's a good one. So I mean, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The industry is about to explode. I haven't said it's about to. You see. So what it is
important differentiator.
That's correct. That's correct, because what is happening right now is that a lot of independent artists, thanks to social media, are now able to put out their works out there more. But when it comes to structure and organization, pretty much what you have is a lot of independent artists still supporting themselves. So for example, the project I showcased briefly that we embarked on, we spent a lot of money on it with no structure of how even if we were able to bring the movie to fruition, there was no structure of how we're going to market it. So what you'll find right now is that the studios that are existing, they are struggling to get a constant stream of projects. So they might have a project for 6 months or even 2 months. They gather teams together, but then after that, it becomes all the teams, they can't just keep them. So the teams go back to whatever it is they are doing, to their day job. So you hardly find people who are into full-time CG in Africa, because as good as they are not just getting paid enough for what they are doing. In fact, the jobs are not quite there, because like I said, established studios outside Africa, they are not aware of how good or talented these artists are. Specifically, you did mention about animation school. As far as I'm aware, there is no animation school in Nigeria, which Nigeria is a big player in the CG. Couple of schools in South Africa, but they expensive and people are not. It's just not developed yet. So it's about to start to blow up.
Reinforcing the about to. I should. I'll keep hold of that. So then, you mentioned that the European and rest of the world studios, they're just not aware yet of the talent that Africa has. And is that, I suppose, aligned with CGAfrica and what you're doing and your goals to spread the word and showcase that talent?
That's correct. That's correct. Well, because for the past couple of months, we've been talking to some studios, both in Europe and in America, and all of them have been surprised as to the immense talent that we are showcasing to them, and they are opening up their arms. They are willing to work with these talents. So one of the things we found that one of the major things is that the studios are not just aware. They have no idea how to access these talents. And that's one of the goals of CGAfrica, to open up these talents. So the idea is that artists come on CGAfrica to showcase their work. And then we as a platform showcase this work to a global audience. Not, well, we will showcase our works within ourselves for a number of years, but now we want to showcase our works, take it from within ourselves as a community up to these studios. So now they are warming up to us, and this has to be the fact that now we are getting confidence as artists to say, all right, we've encouraged one ourselves, and now we are now ready to take on more from the professionals.
And I suppose, I know I've seen it in studios, certainly in London, I can speak to it, in that when these big projects land and there is a lot of work out there and not a lot of talent to cover it in local areas anyway, when we're looking to hire. Right. So thanks to virtual technologies and companies like Teradici and being able to reach talent where maybe you couldn't before, that's also going to be an opportunity for people in Africa who have this immense talent and haven't always been able, they haven't necessarily had schools or a studio to attach themselves to. They've now got that chance to work with studios further afield.
That's correct. That's correct. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad that's your experience, Charlie. You know, because it's a testimony, because that's what I have found out within the past few months from talking to these studios. And one of the advantages that, because I've been talking to some of the artists in Africa as well, the advantage that these artists have is that because they haven't went through a formal education, you could say they've gone through the education of what's the word? Should I say the school of hard knocks? So these guys, they are talented, they know their job, but then they have a lot of tricks that they've picked up along the way. So what you will find is like Sylvester, Adewale, by the time they come on board, by the time we showcase their work, I wouldn't want to say they wear a different hats, but they are so creative. They have an idea, an overview of the entire process, not just fixated like, oh, I'm a modeler or an animator. Every artist in Africa, before they get to choose what the department of CG they are working on, they must have been through it all. So that's an advantage that I find out working with these artists, and the studios are loving it.
Yeah, I mean, I know certainly on any animation project, you can have up to 300 artists needed, and they come quickly. You need to hire them, and there just isn't that volume at your fingers. So at your fingertips. I mean, are you seeing that uptake? I know you said are you experiencing that yet, or do you think there's more to be done still in promoting your guys? I mean, everything that you're doing is amazing already.
Yeah, there's still a lot to be done. There's still a lot to be done, even from our side. When I say from our side as a platform, and from the artist's side, what you find, because the artists, some of these talents or some of these skills they've picked up, they tend to undersell themselves. So you find an artist who said, I'm good with this and that. But then if you probe him further, him or her, you find out that actually you haven't told me you can also do this, you can also do that. And what they will find, what they will say is, oh, well, I thought everyone knew that because I learned that so early in my career. So that's what we try to incorporate a questionnaire sort of on our platform, that it almost let the artists, as they are joining the platform, onboarding on the platform, to enumerate exactly what they can do. Because trust me, these artists, they do undersell themselves. One will say, I'm a modeler, or I use Maya or Whitney. But then if you probe them further, these guys are so good that they can leverage on their other skills to boost their CV. So that's one of the goals, to expand how we sort out the talents on the platform itself, and then get across to the artists and let them know that, look, whatever skill you've got, don't hide it under the basket, so to say. Be proud enough and be confident, and then showcase it. That's one of the goals, the things we're aiming at for.
That's great. And I think before we start chatting with Sylvester and Adewale, are there any initiatives that CGAfrica is running that you'll be launching soon that you wanted to talk about?
That's correct.
That was a bit of a loaded question.
Yes. The one I would like to talk about is the CGAfrica challenge or competition that we've just established. It's an initiative that we just come up, CGAfrica competition and awards, and we're having the maiden edition in a couple of months. In fact, by February, we would make an official announcement. For the maiden edition, we've chosen a theme, Legend of Shango, the Third Emperor. I think I've explained this to you before. The third emperor, Shango, was an historical figure, and he was a powerful emperor that ruled one of the empires in Western Africa. So the idea is we are inviting artists to imagine what he looked like as an emperor. And with that, we're asking artists to draw 2D drawing as a concept art. We're not asking for much. We're not asking for a 3D art, just 2D digital art of what the character might look like. And reason why we've decided to do that, we thought that will cut across, because end of the day, not a lot of people have the technical expertise to make 3D. Not a lot of people can afford the hardware, but this is like the basic that we can go for. Just draw. And to achieve that, also we are hoping to have some prize money, some sizable prize money. So we've been talking to studios here and reputable studios, if they are willing to be part of the competition, to team up with us, and then we share this money among the first, second, and the third winners. So we are looking forward to that. And the idea, if I could say, is the product of that competition will be used. So for example, someone draws the winner of that competition as a 2D art. We will open another competition and we'll invite artists to come and model based on the 2D art that was produced. Open another competition based on the winner of the model for texturers, for lighting, and eventually we develop this character from inception, from concept up until animation through competition. That way we get the best of artists in each category. And I think that's why it's important that we have a good size money for associated with it.
That's amazing. I think I really hope that all the studios that you approach get on board there. I think it's super important, and just to give people that hope and part of being, it's being part of something is amazing. And to get that feedback firsthand, let's welcome Sylvester and Adewale.
Hi. Let's start way back when I was like 10, 5, something like that. And my first set of Legos was an airplane, and I enjoyed like building the pieces and everything. And I was like, okay, I want to be a pilot. And I went with that for a few years, and eventually, over like many other Legos, many other sets and things like that, I changed and I said I want to be an aeronautic engineer because I like creating things. And then in secondary school, I got an assignment. It was researching 3D and animation, and I saw all the content that was being made and I was very curious. And then my friend hooked me up with a version of SketchUp, which is an architectural program. And yeah, I used that for a while. It was like my bread and butter. I learned everything with it. And then I eventually learned about Blender. So Blender was my first 3D modeling app, 3D sculpting. And to learn with Blender, I used a lot of YouTube tutorials. If I wanted to learn something, I would set myself like a project, like say build a tank or build a tiger or something like that. And then to build it, I would look at a YouTube image or a YouTube video of everything that will be used in building that. That's how to model, time lapses of how to make a rig of a tank, time lapses of how to make the wheels, or in the case of the tires, in the case of the tiger, how to make fur, how to texture, how to make eyes, everything. And that's basically doing that over and over again I would say, improved my skills, and that's how it was.
I mean, that's incredible and shows a real, I guess, passion and love for for the craft to have that dedication. And we'll talk a little bit about the access to software and what you've worked on in a little bit. But Adewale, could you take us through your journey as well?
Okay, hello. So, okay, I think it's pretty much similar to Sylvester's, just a little bit. Of course, back then I've always been fascinated, watching animation movies, but I wasn't really sure if I was going to do it. But then I think back then I wanted to be an engineer, but yeah, I mean I wasn't specific about the kind of engineer I was going to be. And then I think after high school, I got to learn how to design graphics. So I did that for like 2-3 years before I got admission into the university. So I studied computer engineering, and after a while, I think in my 3rd year and 4th year, I was able to I went for my IT 9 months in total. So I did my IT in a STEM company in Lagos. So there I was actually introduced to game development, building 2D games, the software named Construct 2. So from there, I met a couple of guys, one guy in particular actually, it was using Blender. The guy created a car, and I was like, oh, is this real? Because the way you actually, rendered it, it doesn't even, look real. So I was like, is this real? I was like, no, you have to create a 3D software. Then, I was like, oh, wow. I mean, can you teach me how to do it? I was like, okay, let me just, just go and download Blender, just watch, a few tutorials on YouTube. And, I started using Blender for a while. Then eventually I stumbled upon, Maya, which I got to know it was like the industry standard. So, I downloaded Maya and then, started using it since then. So, yeah, and of course, ever since then, up to, this moment, there has been a lot of challenges here and there, which is one Sylvester actually, mentioned, we have to, go to YouTube, watch different, tutorials here and there. And sometimes you don't even find the right tutorial. I mean, you just have to, keep searching, until you get one. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you.
How important to you was I guess Blender was a major part of that opening up that opportunity for you to be able to work and learn more about 3D and CG?
The thing about Blender is it's like a mixture of several 3D packages in one. There's modeling, there's sculpting, there's texturing, there's animation, there's video editing, there's compositing. And in my opinion, those are like the 7. I don't know. There's more. There's definitely more. But mostly those are what you use, and Blender is free and it has all of that. So it's perfect for getting up. And then eventually, after say you learn sculpting in Blender, you can go into ZBrush and start like rudimentary, like figuring out the UI, but you already know all this from coming from Blender. So when you go into more powerful tools that are made specifically for, say, sculpting or simulations, you have like a preliminary understanding of it. So from the texturing aspect of Blender, you can go into Substance Painter. From the simulation aspect of Blender, you can go into, say, Marvelous Designer, or I would say Houdini. Houdini is a bit different, but something like that. From the node setup of materials in Blender, you can go into like the node setup of Substance Designer and different things like that.
We've spoken about it before, but what did CGAfrica, how did you first learn about CGAfrica and who they were, and what does it bring to you? What does it mean to you? And that's both to both of you.
I found CGAfrica because I was looking for a platform I was basically looking for different platforms to promote my art. And I found this particular one that was like, oh, this is targeted at like Africans, for Africans. And yeah, this is like perfect, because the first piece I did, Dami, she was African and whatnot, and I wanted, okay, this is perfect. For what I wanted, that was perfect. And also I was able to like find different artists. Like, I didn't know that amount of artists in Africa or Nigeria existed until I saw like the works from different artists on CGAfrica. So I feel like it's really focused, and like Femi said, it's sharing in-house, and it's in the stages before it starts globalizing.
I mean, I guess it's also offering that community and being able to talk about, share your artwork and share different techniques, bringing that together. I don't know if you've got a view on that, Adewale.
Okay, I think in the earlier years of my 3D career, of course I was looking for something as well to actually put there. But so I think I found them on Instagram. But of course, when I went there, I actually saw a lot of arts, and I was like, is this really made by African artists? Because of course, when I actually see any art online, I'd be like, oh, this is actually so complicated. I mean, how do they make this, stuff like that? So now when I noticed some of these things are actually made by Africa, I actually reached out to one of them. There was a time in, I think, 2018. They posted one guy's work, and I was like, okay. I reached out to the guy. I was like, oh, I was like, is it African? I was like, oh, so these arts are actually from Africans. So I mean, that kind of gave me like a little bit of confidence that okay, I think you can do this. So yeah, and ever since then, I've been in CGAfrica as well. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Adewale. That was it's great, and it's great to hear from people who are actually making use of the platform and what it means to them. We now are 15 minutes out to the end of the session, so we are going to ask a few questions. So the first one, as we've just left you, Sylvester and Adewale, if anyone wants to connect with you or have a look at your Instagram, how can they reach you?
So I'll put my ArtStation and Instagram links in the chat. Can everyone see that?
And Adewale, do you have anywhere where people can contact you?
So I'll put that in the in the chat session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this one may be to Mark and to Femi, because it is related to both GridMarkets and CGAfrica. Are CGAfrica and GridMarkets collaborating in any ways other than beyond this webinar?
I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
Ali. And that's a good question. I think already this webinar itself lent itself as a testimony to the collaboration that we are doing with GridMarketing. And I'm grateful for Mark for organizing this. We are still at the inception of talking to all of these studios. So if you are asking for specifics from what to expect from CGAfrica and GridMarkets in the future, There's nothing I can give you now, but definitely, I'm sure we can work together. So please follow the platform, subscribe, and do everything so that you can get to know about future collaborations that is happening.
Thanks. It's going to be the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, well, looking forward to it. Yes.
So I've got another question here. How do you join and get started with CGAfrica? That's probably one of the most important questions of today.
CGAfrica.com and register. It's free.
I like that. And there's one more question. Does CGAfrica help to find work for African artists? Now, I know we spoke a little bit about the artists, studios now hiring globally. I mean, I suppose we didn't speak directly about how our CGAfrica. Do you have like a job board? Do you share those kinds of opportunities directly with artists? How does that work?
So the job board, we're working on a job board at the moment so that it's more transparent, and then artists who are interested can actually indicate their availability. We are working on that at the moment. We've had a number of instances, very few, where studios have asked that, all right, give us your best artists, and then let us see what they can do. Because what we find out is that because established studios, they are not comfortable yet because there has not been so much of a track record of them working with artists from Africa, so a little bit reticent. So the number of recruiters that we have spoken to, they are happy to interview the artists on the platform, and we are within the next few weeks or few months, I'm sure we will have positive responses from them.
Great, thanks Femi, and thank you Sylvester and Adewale for being absolutely amazing guests and sharing with us your artwork, your journeys, and just general brilliance. It's really been a pleasure talking to you and just learning about each of you. It's really great.
Thank you too, Charlie. It's been nice.
Thank you.
Perfect. So now we're going to go on to, there it is, back again, the promo code for GridMarkets. So go on gridmarkets.com/sign up. It's a good memory from the beginning of this webinar, and put in the promo code 2022 Jan 18 webinar, and you will get 15% off. Now, next week, not next week, but the next webinar, which is taking place on the 2nd of March, we have Berlin-based Lightberg Studios, who are a fascinating collaboration among innovative filmmakers and musicians. Their comfort zone includes film, streaming, animation, sound, and music productions. So we are really looking forward to having them, and it's just another example of why community and why people working together and collaborations are so strong, and they offer opportunities. So can't wait to see you then. Thank you again, Femi, Sylvester. Ben, you were brilliant. Adewale, Mark, thank you for making this happen and bringing it all together. We'll see you on the 2nd of March. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Charlie, and thank you, everyone.
So much. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.